And that doesn't mean that doing this, going in the woods and just beating the ground with a stick or whatever while you're screaming, that it doesn't give you some temporary relief, but that actually makes it more dangerous, because what happens is that temporary relief creates negative reinforcement. So when you experience this temporary relief, it reinforces that if you are aggressive, it makes you feel better, which can create a cycle where the person continues to use aggression as a coping mechanism. Rage rituals have now become a new trend, specifically among women, and it is kind of the hyper-spiritualized version of rage rooms. And rage rooms were this not so unique idea where you could pay money to go into a room where there's just all kinds of stuff. There's plates and pianos and things to break, and you pick up a sledgehammer or a chainsaw and you put on a bunch of protective gear and you just kind of like scream your head off and break a bunch of stuff. And it's supposed to be cathartic at some level to help you deal with the frustrations that you have in your life. Here is a video on Twitter about these rage rituals. It says it's time to rage. Rage rituals are getting attention on social media, especially from women. Now, if you're only listening to this and you're not watching this on YouTube, then first of all, wow, this probably sounds like an Animal Planet documentary. These are women screaming at the top of their lungs. Watch on YouTube, by the way, subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Clayton Tyner. I am going to turn the sound off because it's very distraction. We'll watch it together and I will read the commentary. Rage rituals, attention, participants scream and sometimes beat large sticks on the ground. A woman is saying, give it to them. To release emotions are often discouraged from expressing. Women in the forest, beating sticks on the ground. When people do this and give themselves permission to release their anger, their capacity for joy actually expands. And if you read this, it says Maya Banducci, and she's the author of a book called Into Witchin. WITCHIN. Into Witchin, which first of all, wow, great pun. Second of all, are you a witch? Because if you're a witch, all of this starts to make a lot more sense. And this woman is so exasperated. They're crying. They're hugging each other. It's time to rage. So what's going on here? What's happening is an idea called the catharsis hypothesis. And this hypothesis says expressing anger in aggressive ways can purge it from one's system. And so if you've got a bunch of pent up anger, which happens, a lot of people get angry, then you can just release it. You can scream and you can beat things and throw things around. And honestly, we've probably all done this at some level. We've had so much anger that we just let it out and we screamed or we, punched our pillow or whatever, and the idea is if you'll just let that out, then you'll feel better. However, not only just watching these videos does this look like a bad idea. On the surface, it just looks kind of crazy. It also goes against almost all the psychological research and the things that we know about how anger presents and expresses itself. For one, aggression breeds aggression. Research shows that expressing anger through aggressive action does not dissipate anger, but increases it. And so engaging in aggressive behaviors reinforces your aggressive thoughts and emotions, and it makes you more likely to respond with aggression in the future. And that doesn't mean that doing this, going in the woods and just beating the ground with a stick or whatever while you're screaming, that it doesn't give you some temporary relief, but that actually makes it more dangerous, because what happens is that temporary relief creates negative reinforcement. So when you experience this temporary relief, it reinforces that if you are aggressive, it makes you feel better, which can create a cycle where the person continues to use aggression as a coping mechanism. And obviously, like any cycle, this will just build and build over time. And so what this is actually teaching you is that the way to feel better is to be really aggressive and really violent. Sounds like a bad idea. Wow. This also just does not get to any kind of core issues. There's no kind of problem solving that happens here. You're not learning any kind of emotional regulation. You're not creating any kind of mechanisms in your life to try and curb whatever is at the core of what's making you angry. For a lot of people, you are that angry because you have some kind of grievance you're holding that you haven't been willing to confront. You don't want to have conflict with that person. You haven't built skill sets to have conflict. You're not holding people accountable. You don't have good boundaries in your life. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not healthy. And so all of this pent up emotion, anxiousness, depression, which is often defined as anger turned inward. So all of these things are in you. And so instead of dealing with it and going and seeing, I don't know, a therapist, right? Like you go out into the woods and you scream and you beat things, or you go in a rage room and you smack a piano with a sledgehammer. And now you're like, oh, I feel so much better. Well, what's going to happen the next time you're angry? The next time you're angry, you're going to be like, I need something to punch, right? Well, that is obviously not a good idea. Obviously a dangerous precedent. And scripture has been telling us this for thousands of years. All the way back in the wisdom book of Proverbs, it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And we think of that interpersonally, but it's also true intrapersonally, that whatever you feed grows. If you want it to grow, feed it. If you want it to die, starve it. And so when you feed violence, you become more violent. When you feed angry responses, you are more likely to have angry responses. James in the New Testament said, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God's desire. Righteousness is a rightly oriented life. I know it's a big spiritual term and it throws people off. It is a rightly oriented life. It is a life done right, done correctly. It is the life that we all want to live. Rage rituals are trying to create a spiritual environment, but it is an inverse of actual spirituality. It's trying to create a religious experience, but it is religion not oriented towards God. It's religion oriented towards man, which is the same thing as saying religion oriented towards Satan. And so what we should do is get in a faith community, do the hard work, address our core issues, find better coping mechanisms, replace our anger with love, and live a righteous life. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you are subscribed so you can stay up to date with all new content. And if you want early access, exclusive content, and monthly live Q&As, make sure to check out patreon.com/ClaytonTyner.